I never imagined that I'd be sitting here, telling this story, but I think it's time the truth came out. I've always believed in kindness, in helping family, and in opening my doors when someone is in need. That's what family does, right? But recently, I overheard something that completely shattered me. Words, so cruel and dismissive, they still echo in my ears. My daughter-in-law, the woman I welcomed into my home, called me an old shrew, and after everything I'd done for them, I gave her and my son 24 hours to pack their things and leave my house. Let me take you back a bit. My husband passed away 6 years ago. Since then, it's just been me in this big, old house. It's quiet, sure, but I've managed. I tend my garden, bake every Sunday, and occasionally volunteer at the local library. Then last year, my son Jason lost his job. Things got tough. They were struggling. Rent overdue, groceries tight, bills piling up. And naturally, as a mother, I said, come stay with me for a while. Get back on your feet. No rush. Jason was hesitant at first, but his wife, my daughter Lila, was quicker to accept. She said thank you, gave me a tight hug, and even brought me flowers the first day they moved in. I felt hopeful. I thought we'd become a little family again. At first, things were fine. Lila helped with dinner sometimes, and Jason kept promising he was applying everywhere. But weeks turned into months. They'd sleep in late, binge-watch shows on my couch, leave dishes piled in the sink. I tried to be patient. I reminded myself they were under stress, but Lila had started acting different. She'd roll her eyes when I suggested anything. She'd laugh sarcastically when I offered advice. I noticed her whispering on the phone, sometimes giggling. Once, I caught her mocking the way I walk. I brushed it off. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Then came that Sunday afternoon. I was in the hallway, headed to my bedroom, when I heard them in the living room. They didn't know I was nearby. Lila's voice was clear as day. She said, God, I can't take it anymore. Living with that old shrew is driving me insane. Jason laughed. I froze. I couldn't believe it. Me, a shrew. After I'd opened my home, my heart, my kitchen, my everything. I stepped back quietly, heart pounding. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there, letting those words sink in. That moment, something inside me changed. I gave myself one night to think it through. But by morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I went downstairs, looked them both in the eye, and said the words I never thought I'd say to my own son. I barely slept that night. My heart wasn't just hurt, it was heavy. I kept replaying her voice in my mind, like a cruel song stuck on repeat. Old shrew. The words felt poisonous, like they'd been planted and had started to grow. Morning came, and the house was still. I brewed my tea like I always do. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise, trying to decide if I could pretend it never happened. But deep down, I knew I couldn't. If I let this go, what kind of message would I be sending? That it's okay to be used, to be disrespected under my own roof? No, I raised my son better. I was raised better. So when they finally came downstairs, all groggy-eyed and yawning, I looked them both square in the eye, and with the calmest voice I could muster, I simply said, you have 24 hours to leave. Soft pause. Emotional music builds slightly. They didn't understand at first. Jason asked if something had happened. Lila just blinked at me, like I'd lost my mind, but I didn't explain. I didn't need to. I just repeated myself. 24 hours. I need my home back. And then I walked away. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want apologies that weren't sincere. I had heard enough. The day passed slowly. I could feel the tension in every corner of the house. I didn't make small talk. I didn't make lunch. I stayed in my garden, letting the fresh air cool my thoughts. I saw them move around the house, packing, whispering, sometimes arguing. Jason looked ashamed. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Lila, she acted annoyed, like she was being inconvenienced. Not once did she say thank you. Not once did she say sorry. By sunset, they were gone. 2 duffel bags, a suitcase, and a silence so loud it echoed through my home after the door closed behind them. I stood by the window for a long time after they left. The house felt peaceful, and yet, something inside me had shifted. There was grief, yes, grief over how things had turned out. Grief over a son I no longer recognized. Grief over trust that had been broken. But there was also relief. Not from the noise or the mess, but from finally choosing myself. The first night after they left, the house felt empty. Not the kind of peaceful silence I'd imagined, but the kind that rings in your ears, like something's missing. I kept thinking, did I overreact? Should I have talked to them first, given them one more chance? But then I remembered Leela's words, old Shrew, not in frustration, not in a moment of anger, but with mockery, cruelty, and Jason. He laughed. That part still stings more than anything. The days went by, no calls, no texts. Weeks passed, I stayed busy. Garden work, crossword puzzles, volunteering again. I was rebuilding my space, and in some ways, my dignity. And then, I got a call, from my sister-in-law of all people. She said Leela had been talking to friends, online, even family, saying I kicked them out for no reason, that I was controlling, that I'd gone senile. I felt sick. She hadn't just disrespected me in private. She was painting me as the villain to anyone who would listen. That's when I knew. It had never been about a misunderstanding. Lila never saw me as family. I was just a free Ruth. But something unexpected happened. A few cousins, and even one of Jason's childhood friends, reached out, saying they didn't believe her. They'd seen how I am. One of them even said, "You're the most patient woman I've ever known." That meant something. It reminded me that while some people will twist the truth to suit themselves, others will always see the bigger picture. And then, one morning, about a month later, I got a text, just one sentence, from Jason. "Mom, I'm sorry, can we talk?" My heart caught in my chest. I wanted to believe it, but I was cautious. We met for coffee. Neutral ground. He looked tired, older than before, and for the first time in a long while, sincere. He told me everything. He'd lost his job again. Leela blamed me for everything. She told him I never respected her, that I wanted to break them up. But deep down, he said, he knew better. He said, "You didn't break us, Mom. She just never tried to be part of this family." They separated 2 weeks later. I never wanted my son to go through heartbreak. I would much rather been wrong, and stayed quiet, than have this be the truth. But sometimes, drawing a line is the only way someone learns where the boundaries are. I wasn't being cruel. I was reclaiming respect. Jason and I are rebuilding, slowly. He visits more now. Sometimes we sit in silence. Sometimes we laugh. We don't talk much about her anymore. That chapter is closed. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Being kind doesn't mean letting people walk over you. Being family doesn't mean accepting disrespect. And sometimes,